Hello, boys and girls. You are here in Mrs. Duncan's kitchen, and you are looking at a measuring cup in my kitchen, and I have poured some soda in there. I'm using soda because that way we can see it a little bit better than if I just used water. And we're going to talk today about how fractions can be equivalent even though they don't seem like they would be equal. Okay? And the reason we're talking about that is because, we've been converting fractions to decimals, and we'll be converting decimals to fractions also, going back the other way. But it's also very important that you understand how these can be equivalent, even when it doesn't seem like they should be. Okay? So what we're looking at right here is we've got one full cup, all right? And the measurement, it's telling us right here, we've got one full cup of soda. But what it's showing us, too, is that it's the same or the equivalent as having how much? What's this right here? 8 ounces, right? So a cup can be divided evenly into 8 parts, is what that means, all right? So when we write that, let's see, we would write that as 1, and actually let me get my thing a little bit thicker here. Hold on a second. You'll have to bear with me because this is a new app that I'm learning how to use. So 1 cup is equal to 8 over 8, right? Because we have 8 parts out of 8, okay? And anytime you see, excuse me, a fraction like this, that just means 1. That just means 1 whole, okay? This can be reduced down to just be 1, all right? And let's see, let me erase that for a second. And we'll talk about how fractions can be equivalent even when they don't seem like it. All right, so what we're going to do is a little experimentation here. We're going to pour some of this out. And let's see, I want to pour about half of the cup out. So I'm just going to pour it into another cup, measuring cup. Okay, because I want to look at how that looks now. All right, so we should have about, it's a little bit, I probably could have poured just a teeny bit more out, but it's about half a cup now, okay? And so we can see that half of a cup, okay, right here, half of a cup is equal also to what? To 4 out of 8 ounces, all right? And the reason I wanted to show you this is because, look, 1 half equals 4 eighths. Now, here is something that's kind of interesting about this. When you look at this, 4 eighths, think about how many times can 4 go into 8? 2 times, right? So 4 really is half of 8, isn't it? Think about that. Let me get a different color here. Because if you have 1, 2, 3, 4 of something, okay, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I mean, just look at that. You can see 4 really is half of 8. Okay? 4 is half of 8. See, this is 8, and 4 is half of that. So that's why 1 half is equal to 4 eighths. And we can see it right here, as plain as day. 1 half equals 4 eighths, because this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 parts. Okay? And the reason I wanted to show you that is because it's like I said, you need to understand how these concepts fit into your real world. Okay? That's very, very important. We want to know how these concepts fit into our world. All right, I'm going to, my thing doesn't have an erase button, so I'm just going to undo. I guess that is the erase button, to undo. All right. The other thing that I wanted to show you, besides the cups and the ounces, is looking at something like this, like something like an apple or 2 apples. All right, so here we have 1 apple. All right, and if we wanted to write that as a fraction, we would write it 1 over 1, okay, because it's 1 whole. Okay. As a decimal, this would just be written 1, right? Because it doesn't have anything. It's 1 whole. It doesn't have anything in it that's less than a whole. Because remember, after the anything after the decimal point is less than a whole. Okay. So, if we wanted to, we could talk about this apple. This is 1. Okay, that apple. And then we could cut up another apple to talk about that in terms of decimals. All right, so let me see. Let me find a good knife to cut the apple with. Okay, so if I cut this apple in half, okay, and I put this half over here, and then I have, and let's see, I'm just going to back my camera up a little bit so you can see. So now I have 1 whole apple, right, plus 1/2 of an apple, don't I? All right. Now, the way that I would write that as a fraction is I would write, I would write it 1 and 1/2. Okay? Now, how could I write that as a decimal? I want you to maybe pause the movie for a minute and see if you can write that down as a decimal. I want you to convert this 1 and 1/2 into a decimal, the equivalent decimal. Okay? So go ahead and pause and do that. And all right, so what did you come up with? If we have, let's see, 1.5 apples, okay, 1.5 apples, written as a decimal, that would be 1 point, right? Because we have the whole. You can't forget that this is a whole. So that's represented right here in front of the decimal point. And then we also have a half, right? But we're not going to put 1.2. All right? And this is really important that I want you to understand, because this is the mistake that many of you are making in class with this concept, is you're thinking that this needs to be represented in the decimal with a 2 in it. I guess because you're thinking because of 1/2. All right? You can't think that way. All right? Because it's half of this whole. All right? So you've got to get that, you've got to kind of get that 2 out of your head. Don't be thinking 1.2, because that's not what it is. All right? It's 1.5. So what would a half be? And now you need to remember that we're on the base 10 system. So what would half of, because isn't this going to be the 10th place right here? That's what you need to be thinking about. This is the 10th place. I'm going to write that down. Tenths. So when you're thinking about that, what would go here? What would go right here that would be half of a whole 10th? And that's what you need to be thinking about. All right? I want you to write down what you think the answer is. And we're going to talk about it in class. okay? I'm not going to give you the answer right now because we're gonna do more with this, and I just want to find out if you can figure out for me what is half of a tenth. All right, and I'm going to give you a hint. It's not 2. It's not 1.2. See, because that's just you repeating this 2 here. You can't think of it like that. All right, we have 1.5 apples. How do we write that as a decimal? 1 point what? All right, well, thanks for joining me in my kitchen. I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and I hope you enjoy this new app, and I think we'll have lots of fun with this. We'll get to see lots of real world examples, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.